Hello viewers, my name is Chase Clover and this is my review on the May 20th, 2015 edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity. I apologize for the sound. The 123rd edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity, and we are 2 weeks away from Tap Out 2015. Now, the show, in perspective, or in my thought, was not bad. You know, there have been intensities and pay-per-views as well that have been, it's been thought of as kind of just held together by duct tape and, you know, Elmer's glue. But when you look at this intensity, you don't think that. You think it was put together pretty well. It wasn't forced, but it wasn't the best. Now, of course, from last week's intensity, you know that I liked it. It was a great intensity. It was better than the week before, which was great, even though it was tainted from the pay-per-view. But this one, of course, was really not going to live up to last week's intensity, and that was kind of obvious. And it kind of gets to me a little bit that these, you know, the build-up to the pay-per-view that will be coming up sooner or later is kind of very far away. You know, I mean, you have, let's say, the first week, when it comes to 4 weeks away from a pay-per-view, the first week building up, you have the number one contenders all sorted out. And then the 3 weeks later, you know, the next 3 weeks, it's just a repeat of matches in the main event or in the mid-card that don't really matter. You know, you just have, I mean, this main event tonight on Intensity was alright. It kind of had a story behind it, and I think that story will lead up to something more in the near future. So this main event made sense. However, you build up too early for the pay-per-view, and then you have the next few weeks just doing nothing. And then that leads to the pay-per-view, and it doesn't make it as exciting as it could be. Once again, this was not a bad intensity. It was not great, but it was decent. It was good. I'll say that. So let's get into it. First off, we start the show off with Seth walking down to the ring and cutting a promo on how Western Light cost him the win last week on Intensity, messing up his Oblivion shot and ultimately getting hit with the porthole and being covered by Dwayne Porter, winning Dwayne Porter's team the win, or the match. Kyrie comes out and tells Seth that he has a choice for tonight. He could face the USW champion Dwayne Porter, or the number one contender for the USW championship, Western Light. Seth chooses to face Western Light, of course, which didn't really make sense to the fact other than it'd be champion vs. champion, and he'd be able to headline a much bigger main event, or a much more compelling main event. And then Seth asks if he could face Western Light in a no disqualification match. Reese says that if he wins his match that comes out next, the match for the main event would be made a no disqualification match. So we end up going to the first match, right into the first match, and it is Seth versus Cannon. So Seth has to beat Cannon to get the no disqualification match for the main event. Seth ultimately beats Cannon, but that's because Dustin Raymond runs out and attacks Seth. And of course, since Seth was attacked and not Dwayne Porter, Seth won the match via disqualification. So Dwayne Porter gave Seth what he wanted, and at the same time screwed Cannon out of a win. Cannon then starts to brawl with Dustin Raymond. They end up brawling back and forth, and they end up fighting to the streets of Connecticut, or on the streets of Hartford. So that just goes on throughout the night, and we go into our second match, which is, our next promo, which is the interview with the Blue Belt champion Yo-Yo Joe about the match between Prophecy and Simon Saint. And of course, the crowd just turned their backs on the match. They started chanting boring, 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 and they just started overriding the show when it came to Yo-Yo Joe's promo. It was hard to focus on what Yo-Yo Joe was saying, because the fans were just taking over and you could only really focus on what the fans were saying. So I didn't even really get to know what Yo-Yo Joe was saying. It kind of sounded a little bit mumbled to me, and I was, of course, focusing on the crowd. So can't really describe that promo too much, but I can guarantee it was something about Prophecy and Simon Saint for their match at Tap Out. Anyway, we get into the second match, and it's Prophecy vs. Simon Saint. Prophecy beats Simon Saint via submission after using a limb lock. Prophecy then looks towards Yo-Yo Joe, who is sitting at the commentator's table for the entire match, and points at him as Joe stands up out of his chair. Prophecy stands up out of his chair. They kind of have some sort of stare down with Prophecy in the ring, Yo-Yo Joe outside of the ring, and then Prophecy goes back to celebrating. I guess that was something that was supposed to build up for Tap Out, but ultimately didn't really do much, or didn't do what it was thought to have done. Either way, it still seems like a good match for Tap Out, but this whole stare down didn't really do much for the match, and it didn't really do what it was supposed to do, which was hype it up even more. So anyway, afterwards, Gringo cuts a promo backstage about Ash beating him down, or not beating him down, but Ash beating him at No Remorse, and warns Ash that when he gets to Tap Out, Ash is going to be done. He's going to be taken out. He's going to be done for good. So, threatening words from Gringo towards Ash, and I guess that builds up to the match a little bit more, and of course, it has a little bit more of an effect on the match, because this is not one of the matches that are either looked forward to, or one of the matches that are supposed to be compelling, or very, very intriguing, or interesting. So, it does what it's supposed to, because it's in the match will be in a sport where it doesn't mean as much as the other matches on the card, which is a little upsetting, because I feel like Ash and Gringo will have a great match. I think it'll be, it could be one of the best matches on the card, but I think it'll be, one of those best mid-card matches. But anyway, afterwards we get into the third match, which is Alex Martin with George Martin in his corner, beating Ezra Hills with Benny Franklin in his corner. Alex Martin beat Hills with the unique win, and afterwards the four will get in the ring and have a stare down with each other. And then Alex Martin gets on the mic and challenges Benny Franklin and Ezra Hills to a match at Tap Out. Well, for the match at Tap Out to be a ladders match for the USW Tag Team Championships, which of course Hills and Franklin happily accept. This is kind of, if you're getting to what this is seeming like, it seems as though, it's pretty obvious that Alex Martin and George Martin are supposed to be a little bit of a kind of a different side of the Hardys, from the Hardy Boys from the WWE and TNA, especially the ladders match or whatever. It doesn't really, it kind of feels like that a little bit to people who just get into USW. And of course I noticed that because, I watch USW a lot and I kind of pick it apart. But either way, you can't fake these guys being brothers. They're both in USW, so you might as well do something with them. And the ladders match, I guess it just seems unique, because these guys have faced off in a whole boatload of matches, and ladder matches isn't really the first one you would think about when it comes to Alex Martin and George Martin, and then Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin. So at least it adds a stipulation to the match that already should be great, and it should be better than what we got in No Remorse, which was also a good match between the Martin brothers and Hills and Franklin. So I'm looking forward to this match, of course, at Tap Out. This should be a very, very good match. Possibly the best match on the mid-card. Hopefully it'll be in the main event, area, but we'll find out sooner or later. And, so that's all we really get. And of course, since both of these teams are faces, they're not going to attack each other. They're not going to brawl. Well, they don't really touch as much as a heel versus face tag team would be, like Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin versus Inigo Reaction. So, I like the whole idea of them either having a stare down or having a promo with each other after a match or something like that, instead of attacking them, because that would be a little bit of a screw up with their characters. Two faces who don't really want to attack each other unless they either wrong them or they don't like them or they're cocky or something like that, or they're brash or arrogant, and neither team are any of those. So it's a great touch to not have them fight, not have them argue, not have them bicker. So that's always great. So great job for that. And the whole promo adds into their match at Tap Out, which should be, as I said, very good. We get into a promo where Titanfall attacks James, and as James is being helped to the medical room by the medical persons or the medical trainers or whatever, Titanfall hits him with the neck fall, and I guess that just keeps summing up to the James vs. Titanfall match at Tap Out, which should, I guess it should be a good match. These are two very great competitors, very deserving of a title push, whether it be the Blue Belt Championship or the Extreme Championship or even the USW World Heavyweight Championship. I think that'd be great. I think James could be one of those very great world champions, with his high-flying mentality, and he's a great heel as well. So I think he would be great for the World Championship picture, especially considering he doesn't have a character that wouldn't fit in with a world champion. And Titanfall, I think, with the change he would have to do to become a main eventer, would have, get rid of that whole demon-esque gimmick that he has. And as some fans of USW already know, USW doesn't like to do things like gimmicks, because that takes away from the performer's ability, and not to mention it makes things more complicated. So that's why I like, with USW, being able to have that whole color scheme that I have, like one performer being blue and one performer being red, and having them mixed together well. That's why I like those kinds of things. And I think Titanfall would need to get rid of that gimmick and just be himself, having a regular gimmick and just being regular, his regular self. And then I think he could be a great world champion and possibly a USW champion. I don't know. We'll get into the future. Hopefully we'll get into them being a main eventer sooner or later. And I think James will probably be the first performer to do that, because I think Titanfall still holds his character well, his very demon-esque character very well. And he holds it in a spot where he can continue to go with it until it gets old, and then he can get, a new gimmick, or he can be himself. But when the fans get tired of it, if they do, then I think he can change it up. But for right now, the fans they're not bugged by it, so I think it's just a great thing to have for him right now. Fourth match, Fernandez beats TJ. I didn't really care about the match. Fernandez is, of course, not doing anything. He is just there for show and tell. He doesn't have... there are points where some performers should have gimmicks and some performers shouldn't have gimmicks, and Fernandez doesn't have a gimmick. They tried to give him this Spanish or Colombian gimmick, and I think he's Puerto Rican, so I guess it would work out somewhat well, because he would have some sort of background in that, or he would be able to hold it up well. They tried it and they scrapped it. So now he's just a regular performer, and I think Fernandez is one of those performers that needs a gimmick. TJ has been doing alright, or he's been doing decently, without a gimmick, and he's been, the Extreme Champion once, and he's the current Extreme Champion. So I think TJ is alright for now, but Fernandez, I think they need to give him a very compelling gimmick, and then he'd be able to get by in places, And there has to be a gimmick that can go well with other performers, or regular performers, or performers with different unique gimmicks, or whatever. So I think even with a non-unique gimmick, Fernandez can do better, and he can have more of a spot when it comes to deciding who gets what in the promotion, or in the whole creative team idea circle, whatever. Afterwards, Capital hits a capital punishment on Fernandez, out of nowhere, and then Double XL comes out and attacks TJ after he was walking up the stage. He throws him off the stage and into the electrical power box, which leaves him down as Double XL stands over him. And thankfully, the power box and the electrical equipment did not affect the intensity show, like the, I believe it was last year when Enigma did this whole Senton bomb or something off of the stage set, and Senton bomb off the stage set and into the electrical power box, where the whole show just started going and glitching out and malfunctioning, everything. And they ended up having to cut the show off a little early. So luckily that didn't happen, because then we would have missed the main event, which was the best match on the card by far. But that's all we really got. Afterwards, I'm going to talk about this just for a little bit, and that's because I'm going to try to do. I'm more than likely going to do a video about this and on this. We got a promo for the new USW Ferocity shows, which is their developmental roster, where they sign performers to a somewhat of a contract, and it's where they go before they get to Intensity and the quote-unquote main roster, kind of like WWE NXT. This whole strategy is getting fans to watch Ferocity, which is the equivalent to NXT. You can watch it on their excuse me, streaming website if you have the membership. That, of course, you now have to have a membership to watch anything for USW. And pretty plain and simple, the developmental roster shows, which is USW Ferocity, will be going on every other week on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting on Saturday, May 30th, 2015, which is just over a week away. I'm interested in it. I'm still waiting for the roster to be released, and yeah, I've heard that there, I believe, 2 performers from SWO have joined in. First off, Jake Porter, who is Dwayne Porter's brother. That should be great. He is a high flyer, just like Dwayne Porter, and I can see a tag team there. We also have three performers from SWO. We also have Weiler, who is a crazy version of Enigma, and I believe that was Tyler James from SWO, who's now Weiler. And you also have Clyde, who is keeping his name, and he was the top guy in SWO. He left amid the bankruptcy rumors or whatever, that still have not taken off SWO yet, but he left, and I guess he got picked up by USW, and they are keeping his name, so Clyde will be in USW as well. So SWO lost another performer there, and that's pretty much that. So I'm hoping this will be great, and I can see new performers being signed in, and other performers getting put up to the main roster, and everything like that. And I'm going to use the term main roster because that's just great. Or I'll say it would be brought up to the main performers. That should be better, and more unique. So that should be great. I'm looking forward to that. Promo after that was Chris Ross getting ready in his locker room, getting hit in the head by one of the greats from the lights above him. Ross gets paranoid, tells Kyle Reese. Reese assures him that there are no malfunctions in anything backstage or whatever. So I'm taking it this is Philip Akron trying to screw around with him, or Lone Wolf, whichever one comes first. I don't really care who it is. The match between Akron and Chris Ross should be good, and then of course I believe that's just going to be a one-and-done match, and then Lone Wolf's going to start feuding with Chris Ross again, trying to screw him out of things. So I guess this could be Lone Wolf, but it could also be Philip Akron, I don't know. I heard Lone Wolf is still supposed to be out for a while. He's on vacation days, he's on a vacation leave, so I don't know. It could be either or, so sorry, sorry Chris Ross. 5th match on the card, Lane and Anarchy beat Greyhound and Crimson Red. I didn't really care. Lane hit the fast lane of Greyhound and pinned him for the win. Anarchy then hit the Chaos and Crimson Red and dragged him to the backstage area. Didn't see him for the rest of the night. That was it. Afterwards, we had an interview with the USW champion Dwayne Porter about his match at Tap Out for the title, and didn't see Dwayne Porter for the rest of the night. That was the one time we saw Dwayne Porter, so it was really a pointless thing. Interviews are really pointless unless it's for a match that you had later on in the night, which is why you don't see as many of them on pay-per-views as you do on Intensity. So, whatever. And afterwards we have one more promo, the last promo of the night, which was Washington cutting a promo on how he could not live with losing to Morbid without gaining revenge on him. He then challenged Morbid to a match at Tap Out. At least that's what I took from the promo, and it seemed to be like Washington was going a little bit crazy, a little bit batshit crazy, because of what happened at No Remorse, with him losing. And if you go to the USW website, the homepage website, not the streaming website, and you go underneath the Wednesday night Intensity tab, at the bottom for right now, you see the main title, which is Washington is losing his cool because of Morbid. And the description is, after appearing on Intensity this past Wednesday in a promo, Washington looked as though he could not hold back the anger he has been getting ever since his loss to Morbid at the USW No Remorse event. Washington seemed to challenge Morbid to a match at Tap Out in his promo by saying that he could break Morbid if he won via submission, and then stated that if he were to accept, his anger would subside because he would make him slap the ring mat numerous times out of desperation to escape the clutches of a madman. The question now is, will Morbid accept the challenge laid out in front of him by Washington? So by what we got from the description on the USW website, it looks as though he did challenge him, being as they have the heads up for what goes on. So I'm going to take it Morbid accepts, and if he doesn't, that's just his way of driving Washington even crazier. And I like the promo that he put out. It was very Enigma-esque, with the different, batshit crazy promo type shit, and kind of making those synonyms and those, whatever it was, slapping the ring mat, which is tapping out due to being locked in the clutches of a madman, which is like a crossface or a sleeper hold, a chokehold of some sort. So I like it, and Washington is going crazy, so that's great to have for his character. He hasn't really been a very key part in USW as of late. He's only got one Extreme Championship match. At least they're not pushing him in our faces. And I guess they learned that with Seth last year. Of course, Seth got over later on, but, you can't really repeat that without wondering whether or not this is going to be the same thing that happens. So, yeah, Washington gets his point across, and we'll find out next week. And then we go on to the sixth match, which is the main event. It is a no disqualification match in which Seth defeated Weston Light. The ending was when Seth hit Weston Light with a chair numerous times, placed him on the commentator's table. He then hit the Oblivion on Weston Light, driving them both through the table, and covered Weston Light for the victory. Great match. Great match. Back and forth. I think Weston Light hit the Lantern once. Seth hit the Oblivion once. Both times each kicked out. They hit each other with chairs. They broke tables by throwing them at each other. I think they got a lead pipe at some point. They threw them through the barricade, which is completely different. It was a great match. It was back and forth. It was something you wouldn't expect from an Intensity main event, even if it were no disqualification match, because you would save these matches for a pay-per-view. So you imagine a pay-per-view match. This is what you got on Intensity. A no disqualification pay-per-view match in the main event, not for a championship. This is what you get. That's what you got on Intensity, and it was great. Great way to end this show. And it was even better because Seth won cleanly. He did not have interference, he did not need interference, and nothing went wrong for the match. So, great match. It was amazing. So, thank you for watching. Remember to like, favorite, and subscribe for more. I'm Chase Clover, signing off.